Hello and welcome to the Turkish Grand Prix podcast on Formula1 FanCast with myself, Manish Patel.
Well, there's no stopping Sebastian Vettel, is there? As the German went on to record his third win of the 2011 season, and his latest victory came at the Turkish Grand Prix. Teammate Mark Webber finished second, and finally Fernando Alonso finished third. And Paul Hadsley is with me once again to look at the race back in Turkey. How are you, Paul?
I'm alright, yes, and depending on who you talked to yesterday, depending on how exciting people thought the race. Some people thought Vettel's domination was boring. Some people saw the racing behind Vettel and thought, yes, this is good. For me, I think it's, in a way, it's a bit 2002 all over again. Michael Schumacher at the front, but at least behind the racing so much better than that year.
Well, before we do actually go on to review the weekend, it's fair to say in the race there was plenty of overtaking. Was it too much for your liking?
Right, okay. If we're going to go into the whole movable rear wing thing, I've heard a lot of ranting. I know it's not perfect. It was slightly too easy down the back straight. I mean, Turkey's a circuit that favours overtaking anyway. We thought that last year. But the movable rear wing DRS, it's just a tool like anything else. The FIA are still tweaking it. They kind of overcompensated a bit because in China they sort of halved the overtaking zone where you can open the wing, and it sort of backfired and it wasn't quite enough. So I think they overcompensated for Turkey and gave it too long, and therefore it made overtaking slightly too easy. I mean, it wasn't just there, it was overtaking other parts of the track as well, like the last few corners, a great side-by-side battles, button around the outside, etc. But, you know, so I think, like anything, the rear wing is just needs some testing. They're still working it out, working out the kinks, and they'll get it right eventually, trust me.
But it'll be interesting to see the rear wing in action at Monaco.
Yes, I've just had that outside, had a bit of an update. They're actually allowing the rear wing in Monaco, which the teams are going against. They may do a teams like agreement and blockade it, but FIA is saying that you're using the wing in Monaco, get on with it.
Well, coming on to the weekend now, and at the minute, Paul, it's looking pretty ominous for Red Bull's rivals.
Yes, as I say, 2002 again. Vettel's king of Saturday, and that usually rolls over into the race, unless you have a race like China where there's no one can tell what anything's happening. Basically, he's got the car superiority, he can lead from the front. Vettel's only weakness is he goes a bit crazy in traffic and he can't really overtake. But if he's leading from the front, he'll never need to. So he will need to keep being king of Saturdays, and then he will eventually be king of Sundays and king of Formula 1 this year.
Well, Red Bull couldn't have asked for a better weekend.
No. I mean, I'm sure Mark Webber made them think a bit and made us plan some strategies. But you know, for us, that was more entertaining, and he overtook Alonso eventually. So yeah, I mean, that was perfect for them.
Well, as for Vettel, pole on Saturday and winning the race at a canter on Sunday. Did seem straightforward weekend for him, even though he did have a spin in the first free practice.
Yes, a terrible spin. Smashed up his car, and apparently that's some people got hold of his front wing and worked out the secrets based on the fact that it was lying in pieces all over the back straight. But yeah, Friday, if you watch the Friday, it was a wet practice, and you think, well, this is not going so well for him. But he brought it all together and dragged it all back and bounced back successfully.
4 races have gone so far, but it's difficult to see who's going to stop Vettel.
Well, I'm handing him the title, but I still think it'll be fun watching because, you know, he might be the champion, but there's going to be a few more races like China where the tyre wear is high, and, you know, you don't know who's going to win. At the end of the day, Vettel's got technical superiority, but that doesn't always mean he's going to win every race. Some races come down to tyre superiority or who's best in the wet, or, you know, you don't know. There's lots of variables. Yes, on a normal afternoon like yesterday, then yeah, Vettel's got superiority, but still a lot of fun watching behind, I tell you.
But for Webber, it was a much stronger weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, will he ever outperform Vettel this year? We don't know. Is that what Red Bull want? Do they want a sort of number one driver and a kind of number two that can scoop up seconds but never really threaten number one? But yeah, I mean, definitely Red Bull erased the mistakes of last year, you could say.
But you know, but at the same time, you just feel that Webber does need a race win and needs to try and beat Vettel in both qualifying and in the race.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to, it was funny watching the news reports up to the race, and if you were paying attention. But in about Tuesday or Wednesday, he's saying, I wouldn't mind seeing another team. I'll go to another team. And then on Thursday and Friday, when they got him to the track and he was talking to, he was like, no, I want to stay at Red Bull. It was funny that it's funny that he's putting the feelers out there to see if he's going to be on another team next year, because maybe he's feeling what we're all feeling and he's like not quite good enough. He does desperately need to pull his act together. Turkey was a good start, but now he needs to start beating Vettel.
Well, Fernando Alonso had a strong race as he came home in third. Paul, decent weekend for Alonso and Ferrari.
Yes, Ferrari are now the number 2 team, and that's what we kind of don't need. We need like one team. If we've got such a dominant team, we need the second team to be also as regular, so when the number 1 team slips up, they can scoop up the points and threaten them. But if McLaren and Ferrari are going to be a ding-dong second team, then that's more than anything handing the championship to Red Bull. But yes, good performance from Alonso, bouncing back from quite a terrible start to the year performance-wise, but got it all on track on yesterday, I'll tell you.
And Alonso certainly gave Red Bull something to think about yesterday.
Yeah, nice bit. Battling with Webber, that was nice to see. Overtaking. At some point, that was to say, if that was for the lead, you'd say it was a fantastic race, because we didn't know until the last 5 laps who was going to come out on top on that. Until Webber overtook Alonso, I think it was not long to go in the race. You didn't know who was going to come out on top on that, and that's what we need in Formula 1. Just if Vettel wasn't, 30 seconds down the road, and you think, this is a great race. But good for Alonso, good for Ferrari. They're bouncing back, and we need more teams to be competitive and sort of take the fight to Red Bull.
Well, with the Spaniard finishing third and Ferrari having a positive weekend, this could potentially be the springboard for the Italian team.
Yeah, it could be. Alonso is very vocal after the race, saying that if he hadn't got trapped behind Nico Rosberg at the start, he would have had something for Vettel. He's very clear in saying that. And if he know what he's like, this time last year he was saying, I'm still in the championship, and we're going, nah. But maybe he knows more than us, and maybe Ferrari are better than they look. So maybe if he hadn't got stuck behind the Mercedes, he'd have a chance at the win. But it's always easy in hindsight, isn't it, Fernando?
It was literally a case of damage limitation for McLaren, as Lewis Hamilton finished 4th and Jenson Button came home in 6th. In the end, average weekend for McLaren.
Yes, it's strange to see them going backwards, especially at the start of the race. You expect, Lewis tried to, ran wide at the start, but afterwards you think he'd be charging through the field, but they still, at the start of the race, they seem to be going backwards. Button is always going to be master of the alternative strategy. It's become a pattern of, the teams work out what's the most optimum, or they think is the most optimum way to do, and Button does the opposite, just hopefully that the race will come to him. It will pay off for him at some point. At some point the race will come to him, because then when it does, he'll be the only one on the alternate strategy, and he'll probably win the race, because that's how it worked in Australia and China last year. So he's king of the alternate strategy, but sometimes it pays off, and like yesterday it didn't. So I think that's his tactic for the rest of the year.
What do you feel went wrong yesterday?
Well, as I say, he wanted to deliberately do something. McLaren, I don't know why they weren't so fast. It must be Hamilton took too much out of his tyres. There was that. Button saved too much, you could say, but he did one less stop, and sometimes that will pay off. But in Turkey, it wasn't the prime strategy. So yeah, he's saving his tyres. But as soon as anyone got near him, they just zoomed past him, didn't they? So it wasn't the greatest idea. But in some races, his tyre management will play as an advantage. It wasn't quite the advantage in Turkey, but in other races, it will come to him.
But nonetheless, Lewis and Jenson certainly had a number of battles in the race, didn't they?
Yes, it show you Red Bull that you can run side by side as teammates, and Ferrari actually. It's more the Ferrari team order thing, because they'll never let their cars race. But after last year's Turkey, everyone gets a bit worried about when teammates race. But they did start. It's something that started in Turkey last year, kind of continued in China last race when Hamilton died right up the inside of Button. Button had to sort of turn out, but it was a great battle, and it was nice to see going side by side.
For both Lewis Hamilton and Jenson Button, they'll be hoping for better weekends in Spain.
Yes, we just see their car seems to be different to everyone else's. They were struggling when other teams have become more strong. McLaren seems to be taking a step back. Ferrari and Red Bull, for whatever reason, were stronger in Turkey, and McLaren weren't. So hopefully it will come good in Spain. It'll sort of swap around a bit more.
Well, another team who seem to be improving are Mercedes. Nico Rosberg, after qualifying third, finished the race 5th. And Michael Schumacher finished outside the points in 12th pole.
Yeah.
Decent weekend for Rosberg.
Yeah, for one of the Mercedes. I was going to say in the little talk there, I was like, decent weekend for one of the Mercedes. Rosberg did very well. He got up there in qualifying, and as I say, held Alonso back, so he was right up the sharp end of the grid. They need to now make that consistent full race pace, not just first pit stop pace. But it must be Rosberg must be enthused by this performance. He's finally got, if once the Mercedes is coming on song, I have a feeling Nico Rosberg will be the one that will be taking the plaudits. Michael.
And qualifying ahead of both McLarens will have been encouraging for Nico Rosberg.
Yeah, but the factory Mercedes team finally is getting near the customer Mercedes team. So yeah, that will be a nice little shot in the arm for them, outperforming McLaren, at least in qualifying. So yeah.
Michael Schumacher showed a lot of promise in free practice, but he only qualified 8th, and he finished outside the top 10 in the race. Disappointing weekend in the end for Schumi.
If you had said to Michael Schumacher when he was considering his comeback, for 2 years you'll be bottom end of the top 10, struggling to get into the points. Well, for a start, he wouldn't know that the points had changed, so yeah, but struggling to get into the points, and I don't think this is what he came back for. He came back on the promise of Brawn being, when it was Brawn, how competitive was 2009. When he signed the contract, I have a feeling he expected that for 2010 and 11. Now, if you'd told him that when he was retired, would he have been retired? Will he retire again? It's not what he's here for, unfortunately. So they've got a short amount of time. I think Michael's losing motivation. Will he be around next year? We don't know.
and after the Turkish Grand Prix, I presume questions about his future will emerge again.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I can't remember how long was it a 3-year contract he signed? I feel it was. But yes, I think he probably will be looking for ways out, or at least to go back to Ferrari or something. I don't know, but it's not what he's here for. He's not here to add small amount of points to his legacy. He's here to add pole positions and wins to his legacy. That's why he came back.
Well, Lotus Reynolds, Nick Heidfeld and Vitaly Petrov finished the race in 7th and 8th, even though both drivers did have a small collision. Toro Rosso's Sebastian Buemi picked up 2 valuable points, and Sauber's Kamui Kobayashi finished 10th after starting the race from the back of the grid. Paul, once again, another good performance from Kobayashi. Yeah,
I was hoping that I was lying on my with my laptop with the onboard stream, so I could have, and then the TV, the normal stream. But yeah, I was hoping I wanted all race to press the button and just have Kobayashi on the onboard. No one else. That's all I'd watch. That would keep me going, because he was just he started last, he finished 10th. I mean, that's just it sums up him, doesn't it? He's so optimistic. I mean, they interviewed him on Saturday afternoon saying, yeah, I'm going to be last, but I can overtake, and the new rules favour overtaking. I've got the rear wing, I've got Kerrs, it's all in my hands. So he's so optimistic, that guy, and it proved well. I mean, he could have done better. I think at some point he was up higher than 10th, but some great overtaking as ever. It was just copy and paste from every race. Kamui Kobayashi, good overtaking. We're going to say it every time, but yeah, great performance from him.
And dare I say it, some of the big teams might just well be looking to sign him up in the near future.
Yes, okay, so I said this before, I don't want him in a big team, because then he'll be at the front. I want him starting from the back at every race. You can put him in a Red Bull, but he has to start 24th. But yeah, that's they must be. And, they will also tempt Honda or Toyota, or some, if you need the Japanese manufacturers. Williams had Nakajima for 2 years, wasn't it, just so they could keep Toyota. Didn't work, but if they can Japanese interest, plus probably the most talented Japanese driver we've had, I'd say he's better than Sato, and I can't think of any others that have actually been up the top. So yeah, I think he will be a very interesting prospect for a team next year. Don't know how long his contract is either. And
just finally, looking ahead to the Spanish Grand Prix, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to, well, you see this thing, normally Spain, you think, procession. You don't think it's one of the highlights of the year. This year, I don't know. This year, I think with the tyres and that, if it's a hot day, then the tyre wear could be more like China, and we could get a good race out of it. That's the thing about this year. It's so unpredictable. You cannot just bank on anything. I'm hoping it'll be a great weekend. Obviously, Vettel's going to win. That's going to be as red unless it rains. But yeah, it's going to be a good weekend for second on back.
To keep up to date with the latest Formula 1 news, visit www.formula1fancast.com, and you can also send us a tweet at Formula1 FanCast.